United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone. Roll call, please.
Mr. Alt?
Here.
Mr. Beistel?
Here.
Dr. Pike?
Here.
Mrs. Kaufman?
Here.
Mrs. Love? Here. Mr. Miller?
Here.
Mr. Polakowski?
Here.
Mrs. Rhodes? Here. Mr. Benz?
Here.
Welcome, everybody, and Dr. Molnar will now start the meeting.
I have a citizen comment, Joe Keyser. Kaiser, excuse me, sir.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hi.
Good evening.
I work at Quality Support, and I understand you have a budget meeting, and I do pay taxes and stuff, but I just wonder, I'm only making very little right now, kind of creative or tax or local tax, and also from the government. I just got a thing from them, and I was wondering if there's a way that we can deduct some where I can help pay taxes for a school board where it won't put me in danger in my own financial status. And that's about all I have. But I know you work hard. I know we all work hard. And please don't forget about the little people, okay? And I'm all for our school and always for the kids. And thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Tonight we have no written agenda. It's more information and discussion. At our last budget meeting, Mr. Alt talked a little bit about administrative salaries and referenced a paper that had been distributed at one of our previous budget meetings with some facts and figures on it. As we looked at that data, we discovered that there may be some anomalies, so I asked Dr. Scott if he wouldn't mind doing an analysis so that he could present those facts and figures to you this evening. And Dr. Scott has done that, so I would invite you to the front table to see what he has to show us this evening.
I guess you never know if you need room. Thank you, Dr. Molnar. I'd like to begin with something very positive. For those of you that aren't aware, and everybody by this point should be aware of our ranking in the 2012 Pittsburgh Business Times. We certainly discussed that. Last week, U.S. News and World Report put out their long-running comprehensive study of United States high schools. They look at 21,776 public high schools in 49 states in the District of Columbia. And we're very proud that Southmoreland High School, for the very first time, is recognized with the Bronze Award from U.S. News and World Report. And just very quickly, it's really interesting what they're looking at. In order to get the Bronze Award, they look at three things, three steps. And in order to get bronze, you had to hit on two of those steps. We hit on two, didn't make the third, and that's kind of instructive for us. But first, what they do in their national rankings and looking at the best high schools, they determined whether each school's students were performing better than statistically expected for the average student in the state. They look at reading and math results on the high school's proficiency test. they factor in the percentage of economically disadvantaged students, in their words, who tend to score lower, enrolled at the school to identify the schools that were performing better than statistical expectations. We passed that with flying colors. Step 2, for those schools that made it past the first step, the second step determined whether the school's least advantaged students, for a lot of schools that can be minority students, for us it's our economically disadvantaged, were performing better than average for similar students in the state. And again, they looked just at that population, and they looked at reading and math on the high school proficiency. And we passed that. We are performing better. And that's what got us the Bronze Award. U.S. News also gives out the Gold and Silver. We didn't qualify, and let me tell you why. It's interesting for us. Schools that made it through the first 2 steps become eligible to be judged nationally on the final step. That's college readiness, something that's very important. And specifically what U.S. News does, they really take a look in their college readiness. They use advanced placement, if you have that, international baccalaureate, if you have that. We have advanced placement, so they're looking at how many AP courses you offer, how many kids are enrolled in AP classes, how many kids that are enrolled in AP classes take the AP exam, and then how they do on that. We didn't make that. And I find that very instructive for us, because going into the 2011-2012 school year, all across the district, our goal continues to be to show evidence as a Southmoreland administration that our students are learning at the highest levels that they ever have. We have identified, starting in kindergarten, this is K-12 initiative, that we need to push kids into the highest levels of learning that they can be in, and then we need to provide support so they can be successful and learn in those higher levels. The traditional model of public education is your standard course would be your lower course, and then you'd have a couple of classes at the high end, physics, calculus, that just a select group of kids got to take. And actually, we structure school so we sort them out. So by the time the kids get to the top, we just have a few that get access to our highest level of courses. We stopped doing it that way, K-12. And we presented the data much earlier, very beginning of the school year, that Mr. Krofcheck, and it's really neat because it really is K-12. We're making our highest classes our standard class. If you go to 8th grade, for example, 80% of our students are in the highest math that we have to offer. Years ago, that was completely reversed, where only 20% took our highest class. Mr. Krofcheck has done that at the high school in getting our kids that should be learning at the highest levels into those courses. And obviously, this is taking data from 2009, 2010. And it's neat to see that U.S. News uses 1/3 of their ranking of schools being a factor that we've already identified is something that we need to do, and we need to do it better. And I'm very excited to find that U.S. News has given us the Bronze Award. I'm very excited that they consider college readiness to be so important, because we do too. And we're fully prepared to see us make it to that 3rd step. So just wanted to be, again, more good news. Amazing where this district has come in the last 10 years. Again, folks, we're not proud of it, but we do mention it often. At one point, every one of our schools was either in warning category from the state or school improvement, which is worse than warning. Every one of our schools was there. And it's been an incredible journey, and one that we're very excited to continue. So, good news for us. We had a discussion and started talking about salaries, and specifically administrative salaries. Southwestern Pennsylvania salaries. Had a comment, Mr. Ault, our administration is one of the highest in Southwestern Pennsylvania. So I think it's important. And please understand up front, I am in no means trying to change anyone's opinion. If you think the salary is high, if you think it's too high, my goal here in the next few minutes isn't to change anybody's opinion whatsoever. You guys get to own your opinions. But in order to form an opinion, you need good information. I want to give you some good information and also give everyone just a very basic lesson in statistical and data analysis. We're looking at Southwestern Pennsylvania. I mean, you guys can see where that is on the map. Not including, I think we can all agree that Allegheny County is in Southwestern Pennsylvania. Not including that. City of Pittsburgh's in Southwestern Pennsylvania. Not including that. What came up on April 26th specifically was PSBA Region 3. The Pennsylvania School Boards Association splits up Pennsylvania into all these different regions. Region 3 is comprised of Westmoreland County, Fayette County, Greene County, Washington County. That's the very bottom of the state here. So I'm going to share some comparisons in those regions. And anytime you take a look at data, it's really important to understand that a piece of data does no benefit to anyone standing alone by itself. It's pretty irrelevant. It's pretty useless. Would you cut my grass for $20? Well, maybe you would, categorically. $20 is a lot for anything. I'll do it for $20. Someone who's more discerning says, however, that can't stand alone. I need more information. They might ask questions about the data. One question might be, how big's your lawn? Another question might be, what's other people get in your area for cutting grass? Another question might be, whose equipment? Do I have to bring my own? So data becomes more useful always when it's in comparison to something else. You have to compare. If you can't compare, National Football League player, $1 million. Is that a lot? Well, there's some of us that are saying, hey, it's just a game. $1 million is too much for any game. I don't care, and I'm never going to change my mind. Well, that's a valid opinion. Someone else might say, well, let's dig into this a little bit. What's the highest paid player in the NFL make? What's the average player? What's a rookie make? Hey, what position is the guy? Is he a quarterback? And then someone might even carry the discussion out to the forest level. What kind of year did he have last year? Is he good? So we always have to look at data. In order to get the most use out of it, it must be in comparison to something else. There was talk on the 26th about brochures and things of that nature that were out, and I'm not really quite sure. The only thing I could come across was something I want to share with the board, and I don't know whether this is it or not. I think Dr. Molnar said that this maybe was at the budget forum that we had. I guess what I'm going to provide some data to you folks, and I'm going to try to establish the validity of my data. And in order to do so, I guess it would help. Does anybody know what this is or where it came from? Because I don't. Okay, thank you. All right, PSBA and Dr. Fike. Hey, when you're looking at, again, in comparison to something else to get value out of the data, in data analysis, there's a term that's used a lot, and I just want to give you this one term. It's called validity. In order to be useful, the data must be valid. In other words, what is the degree to which the comparison measures what it claims to measure. I guess a real good one-word description of validity is accuracy. Has to be accurate. So we're looking at Region 3 in the left there, salaries. And just for the sake of discussion, the aid ratio, it's really not that much different from Region 3, so I'll just try to simplify this. But if you look at Region 3, Westmoreland, Fayette, Greene, Washington counties, those are the average salaries at all of those positions in that region in 2009, 2010. We're looking for the best comparison we can make. So my first question is, that's history. It's old data. Why are we using 2009, 2010? Dr. Fike? Okay. Okay. So it's what you were able to get from PSBA. Okay, very good. And the Southmoreland School District, is that also 2009, 2010? Can you help me out with that then, since it's not labeled? Okay, which is 12-13. Okay, so we're comparing. This looks like then a historical comparison of what salaries were in the past with what salaries are in the future. And so, is this the best measure of what it claims to measure? We're trying to measure, wouldn't it be best if we're going to compare salaries from PSBA Region 3 with Southmoreland salaries to compare 2011, 2012 with 2011, 2012? That's the present. What do we all know about 2009, 2000 prices? You know, we could do this comparison if there wasn't anything called inflation, if prices never changed. If the price of a car, my parents bought a Fiat back in the early 70s. They paid $2,500 for it.
I don't think Social Security got an increase this year because there wasn't any inflation. This is a bad time, bad couple of years to be talking about inflation.
Well, actually,
You'd say take things out to the far end. I don't think 3 or 4 years ago was that bad.
if you bear with me, please. Thank you. Actually, inflation does exist in society, and I'll give you the March figures from the Department of Labor in just a moment for the current inflation rate. But why prices increase over time? It's because of inflation. Nothing stays the same. Gasoline back in 2009 to now, it's higher. Price of eggs, price of beef, it's higher. Prices go up. So if you want to compare, let's compare like years, okay? So going back, what I did then, and that's why I just wanted to show this to you to set up what I'm going to show you. I have 11-12 from PSBA. If you go to the same place where you take the Region 3 to get the 2009, 2010, you can also get from PSBA what the average increase in administrative salaries has been for the last 5 years across Pennsylvania. And the average administrative salary increase for all administrative positions has been 2.6%. So if you have a salary that's $100,000 in 9-10, in 10-11, it's 100,000 times 0.1026, and then 11, and so it's 102,600 times 1.026, and that brings you up to the current year. And really, if you're going to, and again, I'm not. Okay. And that's what my point is. My point is we have to compare like numbers. And I guess my point is if you're going to compare something 3 years ago with something in the future.
This is 2 years or 1 year ago. And rather than beat around the bush, what is some of the numbers that should be in the left-hand side?
I'm going to show them to you.
Okay, good.
But only then do you have a responsible comparison. You can't compare 9-10 with 12-13 and think you're going to match up.
Tell us what they are.
Okay.
I'm looking at $20,000 over what, 3 years? That's 20% on it. Yeah, that's 20% on 100,000. What 2%?
Bear with me. The left-hand column is average salaries for PSBA Region 3, 2009-2010. The middle column is Southmoreland School District, 2012-2013. Point being, in order to do this comparison, we need to look at similar years. That's what we're going to do. That's all. In other words, what I'm saying is this is not valid. It's not valid, and really, it's not really even a responsible comparison. So that sets up my data and why my data is going to be different. How much different? Well, let's just take a look. Again, I'm not trying to change anybody's mind. I just want you to have the information. I'm not trying to convince you of anything. What are the salaries? Let's look. We're going to take a look at Southmoreland, Westmoreland County. Again, in comparison to something, comparing Southmoreland salaries with PSBA Region 3, that's good, but can we do even better? Can we narrow the focus? Yeah, let's compare. May I finish my sentence, please? My sentence was, if you narrow the scope, you compare salaries then to Southmoreland with our IU that we belong to. But we'll do it with PSB Region 3 also.
That is consistently been comparing yourself to Franklin Regional and all of these other school districts.
In academics is what we do, absolutely.
And academics is fine. But we are third from the bottom in terms of poverty. Our salaries are not third from the bottom. If they are, I'm not aware of it. But I'm looking at regional trends here, at PSBA's regional trends.
And again, not trying to change your opinion, Dr. Fike. I'm trying to give you accurate information. Okay? But let's just put it out there. Because again, we're looking at from April 26 about one of the highest in southwestern Pennsylvania. And again, talking about the flyers and the brochures, well, let's take a look at some accurate information. There's Superintendent. It's out there. There's the Southmoreland salary for 11-12. There's the average salary in PSBA Region 3. There's the average salary in Westmoreland County. There's the highest salary in Westmoreland County, and that is where the Southmoreland salary, excuse the dollar sign, that's where it ranks. But your second one wasn't accurate because you were way back, you were comparing 2009, 2010 with 12-13. Well, your first one wasn't accurate either because you were using a future number. Trying to match up like years. I'll give it to you. I don't need to tell it to you. It's here. It's being taped. I don't need to tell it to you. Assistant Superintendent, there it is. April 26, I kind of got emotional over the $117,000. I said, boy, I don't think that's right. Well, tell me what it is. Well, there it is. $117,000 is next year. Looking at someone else's contract, Dr. Fike. Please be accurate. I do the best I can. Do the best I can, Dr. Fike. But anyway.
So is the budget wrong then?
You know what? I'm going to address the 115.9 versus the 114 when we get to the last part, which is a salary rollbacks issue. I'll get to that. But again, there it is. Southmoreland 114, PSBA Region 3 average 112,690. Westmoreland County average 113,868. There's the highest in Westmoreland County. And the rank, my salary in Westmoreland County, out of 13 assistant superintendents whose salary was reported to the IU, it's 6 out of 13. And again, is that a tremendous salary? By all means, say it is, but is it among the highest? I'm going to say no, it's not. Business manager, 11-12, there's Southmoreland salary. PSBA Region 3, there it is. Westmoreland County, 94,960. The highest in Westmoreland County, 119,500. and that ranks next to last in Westmoreland County. Well, again, I mean, very transparent with the data. We can accept, and I certainly concede the fact that sometimes people retire and get replaced. I mean, Mrs. Kaufman tried to bring up that point on the 26th. You have a retirement of a 35-year veteran at a high salary. They're replaced by a more junior person. Going back to, I've got 18 years as an administrator and 25 and a half years in the field of education. So,
That's his first year.
well, sure, we accept
Right,
that.
starting salary.
We accept
If
that.
our past business manager would have retired, where would he have been on that chart? I know exactly where.
High school principal, Southmoreland salary, PSBA Region 3, pretty, not too much of a spread. The average of Westmoreland County, the highest in Westmoreland County, 129, 110 for a high school principal, and our principal salary is the 11th highest out of 16 reported salaries in Westmoreland County.
What's the tax base? You keep referring this to Westmoreland County.
Well, it's not just Westmoreland County, it's also PSBA.
6%.
It's also PSBA Region 3. Hey, folks, I'm quite honestly, I'm trying to take the emotion out of it and just give you the information.
I'm not trying to put emotion into it. I'm trying to be realistic here. The Southmoreland tax base is the lower 26% of the state. Is Westmoreland County the lower 26% of the state? We have people getting no raises for years. 25-cent raises at best, and these are long-term employees.
This man got a 25-cent raise and was very happy for it.
But we're supposed to be okay with somebody getting the $1,100, $2,000 raise?
Well, and I don't know if you're looking,
Westmoreland County?
sir, I don't know if you're really looking at this correctly, but our Act 93 administrators are all on salary freezes. They're not getting anything. But this is what they currently get. This is their salary this year. Right? It's not that they've accepted one. Act 93 is not in meet and discuss. Therefore, their salary is at the 10-11 level in 11-12. It's a meet and discuss, Dr. Fike. They're the one group without a contract. I most certainly did.
Yes or no?
They're not into contract negotiations, folks. You can't volunteer to do something without being in negotiations with the board. What I'm saying is, didn't pay you the same for 2
Will their
years
new
in a row?
contract have retroactive pay?
And we certainly, this is, as all of our contracts, we can't negotiate those in public. It's just information.
I'd be embarrassed if they couldn't negotiate those in public too.
Middle school principal, there it is for Southmoreland. There's the average of PSBA Region 3. There's the average of Westmoreland County. The highest in Westmoreland County, second year, thank you. And that is out of 16 salaries, that's 14 out of 16. Certainly not one of the highest in Southmoreland, Pennsylvania. Just trying to be accurate, folks. Elementary principal, 104, PSBA Region 3, 93, Westmoreland County, 98. Highest in Westmoreland County, 117, and that ranks 9th out of 19. I'm not going to try to age Mr. Lee, but he has our most years in school administration of any of us. Our high school assistant principal, that's what the salary is in Southmoreland. That's what PSBA Region 3 is. There's Westmoreland County. The highest in Westmoreland County is 119, and our high school assistant is last in Westmoreland County in salary. But you have to understand that there's other assistant principals in Westmoreland County that also are in the first two ranks. It is what it is. Our Director of Food Services, Southmoreland, PSBA Region 3, Westmoreland County, the highest in Westmoreland County, and that is next to last of the food service director's report. Our maintenance supervisor, PSBA Region 3 does not include that position in their administrative salaries. There's Westmoreland County. There's the highest in Westmoreland, and that also ranks last in Westmoreland County. And again, trying to take the emotion out of it, folks, I just...
What's the debt level in Westmoreland County? If we're comparing against Westmoreland County, let's try to see what the tax base level is comparatively to Westmoreland County versus Southmoreland. If you're going to compare apples to apples, these things are not, these numbers mean nothing. They're
Well,
glazing people over. Realistically speaking, Westmoreland County, what is the average taxpayer salary per capita in Westmoreland County?
and again, in doing that analysis, could we do that analysis? Certainly we could. But then we get into that term I brought up earlier, and that is a question of validity. Is it valid? I mean, you can compare a high school principal's average salary with the average per capita income. But again, that's dividing income for every household member. My 6-day-old son, average him out too. And
Your son does not have a taxpayer.
no, you just mentioned per capita income. I'm trying to answer your question.
Let's be realistic adults here. When I'm talking about per capita, I'm talking about taxpayer.
Well,
Your
that's
6-year-old son,
and again,
15-year-old son that's working at McDonald's,
I said my 6-day-old son, but
your 6-day-old son.
per capita means every person, per unit of population, per person. That's per capita. Well, you corrected yourself by saying per taxpayer. Okay.
What is the average taxpayer income in Westmoreland County?
And you have to understand what the purpose of this is tonight, to compare Southmoreland salaries in like years with PSBA Region 3 with Westmoreland County. Okay, comparing like positions, like jobs. And to me, that for this argument, for this presentation,
You're going to give a bunch of water through the grass details to blur the distinctions? What is the actual salary? What's the average salary of the taxpaying citizen in Westmoreland County that you're using as a comparison?
and sir, but by no means do I think I'm wandering through any grass. But that was by no means a point of my presentation tonight. It just wasn't. It was to talk about what was discussed on April 26th, and that was administrative salary, sir. That was it. So again, I think you're getting into the point where I'm not trying to change your opinion. If it's too high in your opinion, then it's too high. I'm just trying to provide the information, the accurate information. That's all.
It's too high. I'm saying that the information that you're putting up there does not have a way for you to say this is this. You're saying, okay, so Southmoreland, this guy's making 52. In Westmoreland County, the 67, the highest in Westmoreland County, the rank versus Westmoreland County. Okay, well, let's talk about Westmoreland County.
Well, we're also talking about PSBA Region 3, which is Fayette, Washington, Greene. So it's not just Westmoreland County. I think that's a pretty accurate and detailed presentation of who we are and the geographic region that we're in.
That rank is Region 3 rank?
PSBA Region 3.
Yeah, I mean at the bottom, the rank is the region.
Oh, no, that's in Westmoreland County.
The rank's in the county.
Yeah, in Region 3, you're probably going to have 100 maintenance supervisors.
Okay, so you're putting the rank up as in the county. So you're making our stats look better in the county since the county's higher versus the overall. If you had all the maintenance supervisors in Region 3, you'd have 100 or 200. And we would rank where on that?
Based on, it's going to be close to the bottom. It's going to be down towards the bottom.
But you don't have that number. So when we're talking
Right.
accuracy,
Well, and again, in doing a comparison of this nature, less is more sometimes.
we want more, less is more, but if you want more, he has to come up with the right term for a taxpayer?
Well, no, I was just addressing per capita, is simply all. Any questions from the board? What's that? 11, 12, I was dealing with the year that we're in. I mean, for all the Act 93 people, it's going to be... Well, that's. I mean, that's not my. Sure.
Now, this is just salary, right? Benefits are on top of that. There's a multiplier for benefits.
It's salary.
And what is the multiplier for benefits?
Again, that's a question for someone else. That wasn't the point of my presentation. Well, again, that's.
We're talking a lot more money.
Let's continue.
Yeah.
Please continue with your presentation.
Thank you. And again, my position isn't to alter someone's opinion on whether you're getting vacation days or anything else like that.
Go ahead, Dr. Spruck. Please continue.
Okay, thank you. And again, I know, sometimes when you do this, when you're willing to step out in front and say, "Hey, here's what is." We're not trying to hide from it, but here's what I will say: one of the greatest things about the United States of America, one of the greatest things about this country, is the opportunity that we have. 1984, I was a private in the infantry of the United States. My father was a private. My grandfather was a private. My great-grandfather was a private. My great-great-grandfather was a private and served in the Civil War.
Thank you, but we should
But
get back
no,
to the numbers.
I'm summing up, sir. Okay? Would you give me the courtesy, please, without continuing to interrupt me? Could you give me the courtesy? Thank you. The opportunity that exists in the United States of America is that anybody, it's not that way everywhere, anyone can be born in this country and have the opportunity to become what they want to become and to maximize their potential anywhere else. I'm an assistant superintendent making $114,000 a year. I'm not going to argue with anyone whether that's a lot of money or not. If I was the CEO of Highmark Medical Group, I'd be making millions of dollars a year. Don't begrudge him anything. I had the opportunity to serve my country. I had the opportunity to use the GI Bill to pay for my education. I had the opportunity to take my education to a level where I could enter the field of teaching, become a school administrator, an assistant middle school principal, high school assistant, middle school principal, elementary principal, assistant superintendent now in 25 years. I had the opportunity to do that. And the great thing about this country is others have the same exact opportunity. If you measure your value on how much you're earning, then someone can take their opportunity and take it a lot farther than I have up to this point in my 49th year of life. It's opportunity. Do something with it and have respect for people that do things in this country in all kinds of walks of life. There's a lot of value to being a teacher. There's a lot of value to being a high school principal. There's an incredible amount of value to being any of our support staff, a secretary in this school district. These people have a lot of value. And yes, we have disparate salaries, and we accept that. Any young person that is here, any young person that is listening, take advantage of the opportunity to do whatever it is in this life that you have the opportunity to do.
First, let me thank you for serving this country. I try every day to make the freedom that others have fought for to the best advantage of myself and for my children in this country. But I have a very real concern that our tax base has declined frighteningly in the last 10 years. And
And I truly think that, sir, that you touch on the heart of the issue, and that's what this group has the tremendous burden of doing, making sure what we are doing is sustainable. The product that we're putting out currently, you look at our facilities, amazing facilities. You look at our performance, amazing performance. And your issue is, how in the world are we going to sustain it? I get it. I truly get it. And again, my purpose here tonight, salary information, to try to give some accuracy to some things that were raised on April 26th, because ultimately these folks, that's one of the things that they have to consider going forward. Every part of that budget. And that's what a board does. My responsibility to the board, try to give them accurate information. When you get back to your seats, I'd like to provide you with one handout, and then I will be finished.
Hey, Josie, at the end, John Brown listed the alpha class, like the same ones that we bought at. I didn't know they went to our church.
They've been coming about 6 weeks, 6-8 weeks
Oh,
now.
I didn't even know that. 'Cause I heard them say that they were supposed to be in one church.
Saturday night.
I thought yours was Saturday night.
Oh, come on.
Thank you, too.
Yeah, the last thing I just want to mention very briefly, at the April 26th meeting, the issue of having administrators roll back their salaries was raised. And again, I do not want to, which was pointed out, negotiate contract in public. But I just wanted to provide the board with this information. And again, just be very transparent about it. Obviously, if you're taking a 30-year veteran employee and replacing them with someone new to the position, you can expect that their new salary is going to be lower. But I also want the board to understand, especially for some of you new folks, that quite often, and again, I'm not placing any judgment on this, but what the board has done is when a position has turned over, the board has established a new lower salary for the position. And that's what boards do. Sometimes they establish a higher salary, depending on the qualifications and the experience the person comes to you with. So I'm just, what you see here for all of our administrative positions, it's showing you when the position last turned over. And I'll go right to the bottom because that's what was raised, Dr. Fike, the 115.9. Now you're seeing it because what you were looking at, the person that last had the position of assistant superintendent was Dr. Molnar. And his contracted salary for this year would have been that. He was promoted to superintendent, I was promoted to assistant superintendent, and that was my new negotiated salary.
$1,900.
For that one position. But as you can see for some of the other positions, well actually for all of them, it's significantly greater. And all that means is the position turned over. The high school assistant principal, for example, back in 07-08, we had a gentleman that has moved on to another district, but his last year, the salary, $87,676.
That was 5 years ago.
But this is the next time that we've had an assistant.
No, you had a dean of students in there.
But it's not an assistant. I'm comparing.
You had a dean of students in there.
The last time that we had a person in the position of assistant high school principal.
I can't believe you're saying this. I can't believe you're saying this.
And in 11-12, we hired a new assistant principal, and that person is making that salary, and you can see the difference in the savings to the district.
Am I to take this, Tim, that
So the top position, business manager, used to make 103. But because you hired a new one at 65, we're going to save 37,000? That's ridiculous. We're not saving a dime.
I guess
This is incredible.
Mr. Earl, would the
This is
term
beyond.
How do you get?
salary differential, is that a better
blown
term?
by this.
It's a difference in salary, correct?
Yeah, okay.
It's a difference
If you
in
say so,
salary.
Yeah, it
Okay.
is. Yeah.
Okay, folks, we had a high school principal making $107,253. He came to us and said, I don't want to be the principal anymore. I want to teach. So we said, okay, go back to teaching. We hired someone to take his place for $99,137.70 first year salary, and somehow that was a savings to us.
It was a salary differential.
It was a first year job. First year jobs don't pay the same as 20-year jobs.
Let me go further. There's one position on here, and I won't mention which one it is unless somebody wants to bring it up. But when that person applied for that job, and I was in charge of that particular hiring, they wanted to give that person $30,000 more that is being paid on this sheet. That's the mentality of Southmoreland School District. A brand new person was hired, and I was told, oh, you got to give her about 10% less than the last person was getting, and that person was getting $80,000. So this whole thing, you can phrase it any way you want, but the bottom line is the salaries in this town, in this district, are way out of line. That's my opinion. You can have yours, that's mine. It's ridiculous to look at these things and talk about. You're talking. You won't talk about a couple of years ago, but you'll go back to 2007 and 2008 on these sheets to try and justify your salaries.
It's when the position was turned over.
Okay.
Okay, so we should proceed now, since you opened the door. Let's give a specific list of everybody's salary now. Okay, the first two I'm going to give you are going to kick in 6 weeks. They're going to kick
Can
in
I
in
ask
6
a
weeks.
question? Because this is all contract stuff. So we can't negotiate any of this stuff because they're all in a contract. It's been decided. You can't negotiate
You
any
better
of it.
believe it. So we're going to give the.
Well,
we're
what
gonna give
difference does it make? We're wasting time. Because
No, I'm wasting time? I'm wasting time? No. No, he opened the door, Tracy. He opened the door. He opened the door.
Wait, he just took 45 minutes for something that
But
was
his
worthless.
contract, their contracts are done.
Correct.
We can't change it.
Why would he open the door? Why did he open the door? To get me. He can do that some other way. Let's list the salaries.
It's to get
okay?
me back.
The superintendent's salary this year in 6 weeks will be $136,343. Then you multiply that by the factor of 12.19, which is a cost of a pension, that's $17,588. Then you take Social Security, which is .0765, which is $10,430, and then you take health care and add that in at $14,240, and the actual cost of the superintendent for 1 year is $178,571. That's just one. Now, do you really want me to go down this list?
No.
Well, I'll tell you something. I am proud of what we have here. And let's say one thing. This man right here, when he took over for Dr. Hatfield, worked for free for a year and a half. And it's just like Levi said last
Josie,
time.
when did we criticize the work they did? When did you ever hear us criticize the work?
Well, Catherine...
We're talking money. We're talking budgets.
Where
All right,
did this
let's
all
go
start
on.
from? It had to start back when you were on the board before.
money.
You voted for these raises back when? To inflate
No,
this
these are
now.
contracts that are 4 and 5
No,
years
you was on
old.
the board before this when this all
I
started.
voted against him. Don't bring that up.
What are you doing?
I voted against him. Don't. That's
Well,
not
I'm
nice to
just
bring
telling
up.
you facts
Not
are
nice.
facts. You
Not
wanna
nice to
bring 'em
bring
up.
up.
All right,
I voted
can we
against
please
him. I
continue?
voted against him. Okay, does that make it?
We're going to go with Mr. Salem right now, his report.
Go ahead with the chair.
I don't want to do
Gave
this.
passed out to the board before the meeting a new summary by function.
I also sent home to the board the reductions that Dr. Molnar and I have been working on for the last week or so. We're working to reduce the deficit. I think the last few days, the work that Dr. Molnar and I have done has been very productive. What we're doing is breaking down the budget almost line by line, seeing where our year-to-date expenditures are, and trying to project them forward for next year. And we've been able to reduce our deficit by a couple $100,000. Of course, we're going to be in 2 weeks meeting again to finalize, or not finalize, to vote on the preliminary budget, the proposed final budget, and then at the end of June we'll be voting on the final budget. So we essentially have 6 weeks to reduce the deficit as close to zero as possible. That's really all I have right now.
May I make a suggestion? As we start this business of cutting down the deficit, the first thing I suggest we do is remove the tax increase from the budget. Remove the tax increase from the budget and start from there.
Is that legal? Didn't we vote on that?
No, we didn't vote on anything.
We had that referendum that we had to vote on.
We voted not to raise taxes above the index.
Above the index.
And we have not. We're not allowed to do that.
Does this budget take that into consideration that we, how do I want to put it? Does this budget reflect an increase in taxes?
Yes.
Actually, what you're looking at there is an increase in the taxes in Fayette County, but not in Westmoreland County. Because our district lies across county lines, the step values dictate really how much you can raise taxes. Mr. Porter would tell you that any district that lies across county lines always is at a disadvantage, so to speak, when it comes to raising taxes, because they can't reap the full effect of the index. So that's why this budget only shows an increase in Fayette County.
And what would that be to the person?
Let me just say that this summary that I just gave out before the meeting reflects that, not this budget. It's roughly, I think, another $20 per homeowner in Fayette County.
And what would the increase be in Westmoreland?
Zero.
This shows zero increase in millage in Westmoreland County. Again, that is a reflection of how the Act 1 sets up the index, and because of the way we sit across county lines.
So, Mr. Batani, can we raise taxes on Fayette County and not raise them on Westmoreland County?
You have to proportionalize, and if the market values are different between the two counties, because they've changed since your last year, that will force you to continue to adjust. So it could work out where you have, where you wanted to keep the rates the same as they were the previous year, but because the market values have changed, then you have to proportionalize again, and then that results in one county showing an increase and the other staying the same, or I suppose under some more favorable circumstances you could end up with a decrease, but that's pretty unlikely.
What do we tell the people then? Does this budget contain a tax increase?
Yes.
You have to give them the complete explanation that the state law is making you do it. If you keep the, if you keep the numbers the same millage-wise from the previous year, and you have this phenomena with the changes in market values, that's what the state is making you do because you're a two-county school district. We're at that disadvantage of this kind of way that you have to budget.
Do you have those market values? Do we know what they are now?
I don't have them in front of me. I'm relying on what you said.
How do they work out?
Well, what do you mean how they work out?
Right.
Well, he just said if the market value changes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was the change? And what are the market values? I'd appreciate knowing that. Or is it in that preliminary budget?
The assessed value in Fayette County is $79,961,150. The assessed value in Westmoreland County is $113,724,515.
Okay.
Now, I ask you if that makes sense to you.
Houses in Fayette County are worth less than houses in Westmoreland County, right?
But
market value? Real estate?
But the percent of total market value is 12% of Fayette County.
Mm-hmm.
Fayette County comprises 12.76% of our market value, whereas Westmoreland County comprises 87.23%.
Right.
So mind you, the Fayette County assessed value is $79 million. The Westmoreland County assessed value is $113 million. The difference is, of course, we haven't been reassessed since the early 70s.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. How does this affect the tax increase then? If we
well, as I explained earlier, this budget reflects an increase in millage in Fayette County, which is like how we've done the last 1, 2, 3, 4 years.
So will the millage in Westmoreland County stay
Remains
exactly
level,
what it is?
as it has for the last 7 years.
It'll be lower, but will it be exactly as it has been?
The Westmoreland County millage will remain the same.
Okay.
Okay. But, yeah.
And frankly,
I'm not arguing with you, but the overall, what we would be doing would be, and this budget is based on a 1.8, if I heard you correctly, 2 meetings, a 1.8 mil increase in tax revenue.
Overall.
Yeah, overall. And then that's every, I don't know whether it's every year or whenever we do this, that is based on the value of the property in the two counties, and that's, yeah. So.
It's a very difficult, complex system. It's not as easy as saying, well, if we, like for example, Franklin Regional, it's all in Westmoreland County. If you raise the taxes, it's all going to be one fixed rate. They can say 2.4% is 1.8 mils. We can say 2.4%, and it's not going to be 1 mils. It's going to be different, as I just illustrated that.
But we do know that 1.8 mil tax increase is $180,000, right? $188,000.
Yes, but we're not going to get that much.
How much are we going to get?
I think we increase of 50,000.
Because it's just Fayette County.
Well, because of the disparity, yes.
So we can tell the taxpayers in Westmoreland County they will not get an increase in their property taxes.
Well, I don't think we should tell the taxpayers in Westmoreland County anything until we vote on the budget on June 30th.
Give me a guess. Give me a guess. Give me a guess.
Thanks, Bill. Charlie, Mr. Swink was asked to look at transportation and athletics, on which he did, and he has some information for you as well.
What you got coming around is we started looking at some of the transportation cuts we could do and some of the athletic cuts that we looked at. once they come around.
Yeah, I'm sorry. How many sheets?
One of them has like a sum on it. The other one's when we'll talk about a little bit here about pay per play, pay to participate.
I'm going to stick to it. Yeah.
Okay, looking at transportation, our total cost roughly was $1.4 million. State reimbursement this year will come in at $940,000, which leaves us with a deficit about $460,000 that the district owes. One things that I heard on the last budget meeting that we talked about maybe eliminating, so I did some studies on what it would be. And first thing was the student activity bus. If you look at that, that's 2 buses a day at $95.85 times 174 days, which equals about $33,355.80. Of that, we net about $11,007 that the taxpayer is responsible for. So if we cut the activity buses, the 2 that we have now, you would save the district about $11,000. One full-size bus. Right now, last year, going into the school year, we cut 2 buses from the fleet. That already eliminated and made the system very tight. If we stay on the same reimbursement schedule as we are now, we're pretty tight. Looking at what we have right now, I think we could probably cut maybe 1 more bus. At next year's numbers, that would be $264.49 a day times 174 days equals $46,021.26. After reimbursement, again, it amounts to about $15,186. And that would, again, is all that's based off of the upcoming enrollment. We have to see how many kindergarten kids we got, where they're positioned. There's a lot, too, when you cut a bus. I mean, it's a lot easier to say cut a bus, but if each bus you cut affects 3 or 4 other buses. And I mean, not that it's impossible, but you got to make sure and see where the location, all your stops are, how many kids and where they're stationed throughout the district. One of the biggest costs to the district that I see as most inefficient costs is the district vans and minibuses that we run for special education as well as private schools. And there's not a whole lot we can do with that. With that $460,000, most of it's being mandated by the state that we run these buses, take these kids to where they need to go. So that right now is probably one of the biggest things if we could look at, maybe try to save some money. But you know, if you got one kid going to Jeanette for school, the state says you got to take them. And that's where we got to look and maybe getting that a little more efficient. But that's a tough sell because you can't really cut them.
One of the things we're looking at doing is students that go to some of the local parochial schools who traditionally had a dedicated bus, a dedicated ride. That will no longer be the case. They will be riding with public school students, and the stop at their building will be just one more stop along the way.
Right.
And that will eliminate some of the cost.
We'll work them on to the regular bus runs, and then the elementary runs that go past the schools, they'll get off and be able to save a bus that way.
Charlie, you said if you send somebody to Jeanette and you send somebody here, is there any way to combine to say Jeanette with the same van and here, near, that
If
3 or 4 vans off the road?
If you look, the biggest thing is difference here is the time constraints. You only have so much time to get the kids to where they need to go. We do utilize as many stops on a van as we can. We got, you know, maybe one going to GCC and one going to Greensburg Partial. They try to get as many kids in there as possible. And again, based on what happens next year, the change in students, change in, you know, enrollment, that might give a possibility of a savings. But until we see actually what happens in the beginning of summer and throughout the summer months, and anything we can cut, we will.
How many students do we have doing that?
I would have to check. I mean, it's not as many as you think, but there's, you know, they're spread out. I think there's 20, maybe 27 different schools we go to. It's quite a few.
Why is it? I mean,
Well, some of them are special needs kids. For example, we have 3 kids with autism. They go to Clellian Heights, which is over toward Delmont, right? We have a number of kids with severe disabilities who go to Clearview School, which is over by the mall. We have a couple other kids who have some emotional issues. They go to Presley Ridge Day School. That's by the old St. Bruno's, or by St. Bruno's Church. We have some students who choose to go to a parochial school, Mount Carmel. What are some of the others? Charlie, help me out.
You got Greensburg Central Catholic, Geibel, Armhurst Christian Schools.
Right, and we're required to transport within a certain radius of our district borders.
It's 10-mile radius.
So we go from the closest, we have to go from the closest point on our border to where that child's going, and if it's 10 miles or less, we have to take them. So we have one student who goes to Jeanette, for example. Well, there's a pretty small window in terms of starting times and pickup times, so that the guy that goes to Jeanette, he's getting a one-on-one service, because that school is so far away from any of the others that we go to that we couldn't get another student there on time. So that's where our inefficiencies lie with those situations.
None of the facilities themselves can facilitate more than, how do I want to put it, you mentioned different categories for them. They couldn't be combined in certain places, right? Or would they do it?
Well, we do that to the degree we can. And a lot of what we look at, too, is tuition costs. For example, Clellian Heights is a very cost-effective place to send kids with autism compared to some of the other schools, so we use them when we can, just because we're saving some money on the tuition. And sometimes there's not room for a particular disability at Northwest Autism School or whatever the case may be. So yeah, we do try to get that as efficient as we can.
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, we take a look at the buses too, but we use kids for that. If we can, we'll incorporate that bus, since we pay for it, to do an elementary run or some other way to get the full use of the bus if we have to, for like a mini bus.
Charlie, one of the things we talked about at length here were driveway to driveway stops. We're concerned about the number of buses, but we see driveway to driveway to driveway stops. That has to be costing us money.
Well, most of the city stops, if you look, they're group stops. There's bus might make 3 stops and pick up every kid there. They fill the bus up. Some of the outlying places, yeah, there are, and then that's what we started looking at. If there's a couple stops that are within 300 yards, I think it is, or 300 feet, I'm sorry. I mean, if we can combine those, that's something we may have to do. But a lot of the times, the state mandates whether they can walk along a road, whether it's considered a hazard walking distance, if the way the traffic's coming, if there's no sidewalk, if there's trains. I mean, there's a whole list of things that you got to make sure before you can let a kid walk along the road. Like, for instance, in Roughdale, I was reading a report today, they consider 31 over to the elementary very hazardous, which it is. But I started looking at some of that. I mean, if we can save some stops that way, that'll be the next thing I try to address. But at this point...
Is it true that buses get 5 miles to a gallon? Is that true?
I'm not sure. I don't know what they get per miles, but I can find out for you.
Another concern that we had about having students who are living in remote areas walking, not only from a safety and trying to be responsible people looking out for kids, but if I'm a parent and Southmoreland says we need your child to walk a quarter of a mile to a bus stop, to a group bus stop, that parent's going to say, well, gee whiz, I don't think that's very safe. I have little kids at home. I can't drive them to a bus stop. Pennsylvania Cyber School, here I come. Southmoreland, here's your $8,000 bill. Unless you happen to be a special ed kid, then here's your $16,000 bill. So we were concerned about how many kids we might lose, if we make it inconvenient for parents to send their kids here, because we're in a world now where school choice is certainly a reality.
Charlie, aren't we based on run more than we are by how many miles the bus goes, as far as stopping here? Isn't it more based on?
Right now, we're based on miles and how many students.
Yeah, we pay by the run.
But it's not by the stop. So
not by the stop.
No, not by the stop. No.
Yeah.
You look at our reimbursement, we're based on how many kids, how many miles are on the bus, and so we try right now with the way the governor has it. That what we run is the most efficient way, because we even looked at eliminating the 3-tier, going to a 2-tier, which would take the middle school kids, put them back on the buses with the high school kids, which I understand there was some discipline issues and some other things that happened when that went on. But as you start taking, say, 300 middle school kids and adding them to the high school, you know, the high school right now is set up for 2 kids per seat, because obviously they're bigger kids, which is 50 kids to a bus. If we add 350 kids, that's going to add X number more buses. It actually would probably cost us money. We'd probably have to add buses. But I mean, that was just things we're looking at, any possible way we can save the district money.
The way the reimbursement works, the least buses you have that are putting on the most miles. So if you have a lot of buses that are putting on a few miles, it's not as cost efficient as having a few buses that are putting on a lot of miles.
And our elementary kids are already, some buses have got 74 to 75 kids, which are pretty full.
We haven't received any information, I'm sure we're going to, from the chairman of the Transportation Committee, but this is the last year for our transportation. We need to be thinking ahead about what's going to happen with that in terms of starting to investigate various options. And
yeah, I would have thought after this, you know, after this budget, or once you figure that out, and I'll get with Dr. Molnar, but I would think we'd want to get moving with that.
Yeah, we've actually begun to explore some requests for proposals and how some of those need to be worded and so on.
With fuel costs, which we pay for, right? We pay for the fuel.
Right.
For the IU?
That's not a contract thing, fuel?
We do it through the IU, I think it is, Bill, right?
We pay for the fuel because we buy it tax-free, but then we net it out of the payment to the bus company. So I think our contract is roughly $1.2 million, but that includes the fuel.
And we get a break on that, about 20 cents a gallon, I think.
Whatever the tax is,
whatever
right.
it is, yeah, whatever it is.
And we sell that back to Green? Is that how that works?
But my concern is that we start looking ahead.
It's netted out of the payment.
I think it presents an opportunity for savings there if we look, you know, the next year.
If we would, on the student activity, the 2 buses, how many children would be on those buses daily? Is there any sense for that of what the human issue is there?
Like I said, usually the high school, we try to plan up to 50 kids. There's some that are lower just because of the way they're run, just for time. But we try to fill up at least 50. The middle school's roughly around the same, maybe a little bit more, but the elementary goes upwards to 75 kids.
Charlie, activity buses.
Activity bus.
Activity buses.
Activity buses? Oh, I'm sorry. That's a hard time
I
hearing.
was looking at sort of testing.
It varies too. There's some days when I will see the bus has nobody. There are other days with something's going on at the high school, they do have some riders. I mean, but I think if we, eliminate that will take away from some of the kids' opportunities to do, I'm talking band, whatever after-school activities they have. So it's not only athletics we're looking at when you eliminate that activity bus.
We addressed that. We're not looking at the tutoring bus. Just the activity.
Same bus, isn't it?
High school.
Is it the same bus?
Yeah, at the secondary level, the tutoring is the bus is the activity bus. At the elementary level, there are dedicated buses for tutoring because we don't have elementary activity buses.
If our formula changed in the state, then we can eliminate those buses, right?
Well, you'd lose that. Yeah, you'd lose that reimbursement off that bus.
But we didn't do that reimbursement formula anymore.
Well, you know what? See, in the governor's original budget proposal, that formula was eliminated. Yesterday, the Senate said no way, and the Senate passed a preliminary or a form of the budget that puts that back in. So the last time I spoke to you, it looked like it was gone. As of yesterday, it looks like it's back. Now the House of Representatives has to get a hold of it, so who knows? So we're trying to actually look at both scenarios and kind of plan it both ways. We don't know what the state's going to do. If Governor Corbett gets his way, the formula will be gone. If the Senate gets their way, it'll be back.
Which kind of leaves us in limbo a little bit. Athletic-wise, I just started taking a look at some of these, and then some of these I just threw out just to look at, but Right now, I know there's $8,000 we can cut in athletic equipment and apparel. Some of the jackets, some of the other things that we've worn, we go on a cycle kind of like the uniforms and just kind of replace those maybe every couple years instead of every year. That's at least $8,000, and that is based off the bid price right now, off of last year. So obviously when they come back, I'm hoping we get a better deal than what I priced them out for because I took them right out of the book price. That there's a 12.3 reduction in what I get budgeted for uniforms and equipment. I looked at staffing, and today, one thing I looked at, so we didn't replace the one football assistant, and the rest of the positions are pretty much just a coach and an assistant. I think it'd be hard-pressed to take away an assistant on some of these sports and to try to run a program with the JV. I had the cheerleading down there, but when we interviewed today, we did some with the cheerleading and with Mr. Krofchek and Mr. Clare and Mr. Mash, and I think if we took away with 18 girls and having an assistant there with all the things that go on, we might be asking for trouble there too. So I would scratch that one, but I've seen anything we could eliminate on coaches, it might be the one football assistant coach.
Mr. Swank, we may have to discuss item number 3 in executive session because it looks like a personnel issue.
Right. And that's. And then the only other one is, like I said, if we look at the concession stand right now, what we put into that. For the,
I don't think we're going to discuss that in public. I think that should be an executive
okay,
session.
that's fine. And one other one was the ticket prices. If you look at Southmoreland ticket prices for the general mission sports, and I don't know if you have the handout, but I took a sample from about 11 districts, and I don't think it was in the packet it was given. But we pay our general admission price to any basketball, soccer, any of the events is $2 for an adult, $1 for a student. The average for everywhere around the district, taken like York, all the schools that we play, is $4 adults, $2 students, with the highest being Hempfield at $6 and $3, and Mount Pleasant at $5 and $3. So there's an opportunity there that we have to get revenue to the district based off the sports and not really being out of line or inconsistent with other districts.
Can you say those numbers again because we don't have a handout? Can you say those numbers again because we don't have that handout?
I think what Charlie said was that if currently our Southmoreland ticket price.
I know what he's saying. I just want the dollar amounts.
Right. If you look, and I apologize it wasn't included in there, but I took Derry, they're $3 and $2. Brownsville is $4 and $2. Geibel is $4 and $2. I mean, everyone in York, Greensburg, Salem, Uniontown, Indiana are all $4 and $2. Mount Pleasant's $5 and $3. GCC is $5 and $3. And Hempfield is $6 and $2. So
what are we currently? What did you say we are currently?
we're $2 and $1.
Thank you.
If a student who's on free or reduced lunch wants to attend a football game, do they get in cheaper?
If they what?
If a student on free and reduced lunch wants to attend a football game, do they get in cheaper?
No.
Okay, that's important. Okay, thank you.
And the reason for that, Dr. Pike, is our ticket takers are not privy to the information as to who's on free and reduced lunch at the
But
highly
it becomes an issue
confidential.
on pay-to-play, Jack.
If every student, if they buy their ticket,
But it becomes an issue, and that's why I'm going to clarify that.
And that would be done administratively. We would have access to those numbers administratively.
Well, maybe not. Maybe not. In one case you do, in one case you don't.
Well,
That's what I'm trying to get at.
When we start talking about pay-to-play, the principals can generate a list. They have access to that information. The ticket takers at spectator events do not have access to that information.
They go through the lunch line every day.
And that's why they have swipe cards.
Well, they can get one they should have one for games.
We don't have a
It's
computer
not an
system
even
in the
playing
ticket
field,
booth.
Jack. That's what I'm
At
saying.
any rate.
It would seem to me we could go up similar to dairy, or I don't think we should go for a big jump here. It's simply the prices but we're at the low end. How is that? Will you come with a proposal for it? Will you come proposing a number to us, or?
Yeah, I can put that together. And I mean, it was just something that I was throwing out there. So if there's interest in that, I can put it together, and we'll show where we can make a little extra money on that.
I don't see it as a big budget item, but I would think there would be some to have a modest increase.
Yeah, Levi, I think when we just did a quick estimate, we thought about doing $4 for adults and leaving students at $1. Am I correct, Charlie?
Yeah.
4 and 2. They're 4 and 2, excuse me. 4 and 2, and we estimated about a $15,000 revenue increase.
4 and 2 would put us right in line with all the other districts around.
Revenue 15,000.
Approximately.
What's in that letter?
That's more fair because we're, our sisters and brothers out around the corner are charging.
Mount Pleasant's 4 and 2.
Yeah.
Mount Pleasant's 4 and 2, Charlie. Mount Pleasant.
They're 5 and 3.
Oh, 5 and 3.
So with that, I mean, there's the savings there. I show 18, and we can talk about some of the other things, but I'm still looking to cut what I can. And like I said, even off the budget, as far as athletics, there could be some more savings once I see, and we sent the bids out, and they should be here by the end of May, and I might even be able to save more. The next sheet I gave you, it's Southmoreland pay to participate estimates. That was the other thing that was brought up, and that's based, there's a sheet there that shows all the schools, in the high school, the middle school, and the band. I called Hempfield and talked to their secretary and just some of the things they do, and they call it a pay to participate instead of pay to play, obviously, because it doesn't promise any playing time even if you do pay. But the difference in them, they had 1,275 total athletes from their high school and middle school. I didn't get the band because she didn't know it at the time, but the free and reduced students don't pay, and they said it's about 20% of their student athletes. It's not a real issue there, but when they co-opted with Jeanette, that's when they started looking at some of the disadvantaged kids. They have a letter for parents to fill out to apply for hardship. The principal and the athletic director would decide if it's valid, and she told me the total revenue they generated from the program from sports was $44,250. But every kid's got to pay before they participate, and they're usually collected by the coaches, and they make payments as there is issue. They'll let them make a payment. But I included in there, they had a policy, they had their form of what they had and an actual policy they did for pay per play. But on the front page, I went through all our rosters as best I could and took at the high school, it's at 263 total participants, which means they participated in sports. 104 of them would have been multi-sports, which means they played more than one activity. At $50 a student, that would have gave us for the high school $13,150. If you take out the disadvantaged students, which show 38% for the district, that would be $4,997, or a total revenue at the high school for $8,153. The middle school was about 123 students. 84 played multiple sports. That generated $6,150 with the disadvantage taken out. That leaves us with about $38.13 in revenue. So the total in sports, we would come up with about $19,300 with 386 participants and 188 double sports or activities. And if we take out that disadvantaged group, if they don't pay, that would leave us with about $11,966 generated, and this would be based off this year's athletes. The band had 71 total participants, and again, going through some of the bands, I'm not sure if they played, but I got 11 kids that I saw that I know played other sports as well as the band. At $50, that would give us $3,550. Take out the disadvantage, that's $2,201. And so the total for the band and athletics at Southmoreland, if we had pay per play this year, and again, it's very close. There may be a couple that I missed. I went through very quickly. All students, if we counted everybody, would be $22,850. And without the disadvantaged students, it would come to about $14,167 off the program.
Charlie, this is the sacred cow I was talking about, and you say you talked to Hempfield when? Before today?
It was a couple of days ago.
Today's Tribune Review. Hempfield. Other cuts the board will make include eliminating 9th grade sports and increasing pay-to-play fees to $75 a student. In the paper yesterday, the number of school districts that charge fees for students to play sports and participate in other extracurricular activities has jumped to 30%, according to PSBA. That means 150 districts in Pennsylvania are now charging pay to play. I had mentioned at the last board meeting, and I got a call from a friend of mine, a guy, and he said, people who want to complain about pay to play I went to the store. The cost of a cheap carton of cigarettes is $50 versus 1 year of pay to play at $50, where you get the coach, the uniform, facility, the transportation, etc., etc., etc. I think we need to keep this in perspective because I'm sure there are going to be a number of people who say, oh, we can't possibly have pay to play. I just think this puts it in perspective.
Why do we have to be like other schools? That's what I don't understand.
There you go.
Why don't we be our own school district and do what we want to do instead of about everybody else, especially pay to play?
Because we're in the hole.
Huh?
Well, it's good information.
We started in the hole years ago.
Now I'm trying to get out of it.
It's good information, to have. Is there that discussion that you want to do for the future for pay to play? Is there any other interest in that for anybody?
I think it should absolutely be included.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Absolutely.
My problem is you're going to take away their buses, you're going to take away their uniforms, but you want them to pay.
What uniforms, Amy?
He said he's going to cut uniforms and going to only do that.
No, that's 8,000 it was more coaches' shirts and jackets, things like that. We'll keep the uniforms but again, I think if we'll lose probably a lot of. I think we'll lose a lot in this district as far as we have a lot of disadvantage. We talk about a lot of people hurting. I think that's just adding some kind of opportunity to lose a lot of kids and give them an opportunity that they may not get. Sports does provide an opportunity to do other things and give kids that don't have the opportunity maybe to go to college, as well as play in the band and do some things that they like. So I would urge you to really think about it. And I mean, I understand in this day when finances are tight, but I think sometimes a kid that doesn't have a lot, sometimes sports and band and other activities is their way out.
Charlie, there's other research that shows that when you pay nothing, it means nothing. When you pay, you make a commitment. You actually work harder and try harder and become more involved because you've made the investment into your own experience.
Yeah, I can agree with that, but I mean, any athlete knows that you put an investment out there too when you're on the field every day too to play, and whether you're marching in the band, I mean, you put an investment on your time in the field.
There's no question, but Charlie, the coaches say the kids won't show up for practice, or what I'm trying to tell you, it eliminates a lot of that because now that I've paid, I'm going to go to practice. I'm going to keep my grades up. I have an investment in here. You have no investment, it has no meaning, and that's been proven.
90% of the parents are going to pay anyway. The kids don't care. A lot of them won't.
Well, then
the parents
that's a
will
family
pay,
problem.
and it'll go on just like it is right now.
And just
because they want to do it.
A little additional perspective, and obviously you guys have a tough decision to make in that, but if you raise ticket prices, who goes to the games? It's family. If you're going to 25 basketball games, and now your family's 4, you're paying 4, 8, 10, 12, and that really is what is going on all across the region. That would bring us up to the average, and now you have to pay to play. You put a burden immediately on those families, and Dr. Pike mentioned, I saw that also, 30% that are doing pay to play currently. Well, a little while ago, we weren't supposed to be comparing ourselves to Westmoreland County, the Franklin Regional, and the Hatfield, and now we are. I would guess if we did a survey of those 30%, they're probably, those 30%, those 150 are, I'm guessing most of those are going to be some of our more affluent districts across the Commonwealth. That's all. It's a tough one. Well, that's a tough one.
Do you think there's any evidence that if you have pay to play or you increase ticket prices, people will stop coming to the games? Have you seen that?
I don't know if there's any evidence or study on it, but I think, when you sit here and listen about how the disadvantage the district's in, I don't think it's going to help us to have.
They'll come and support your kids.
Yeah, they will. They will. That won't change.
No.
So.
But you may have less kids playing.
You may have more. You may have more.
I wonder if a step would be to work on the ticket prices this year and give the pay to play more thought here, at least for this year.
One of the other things that we want to do, and we need to look at some policies in terms of how to go about this before we institute it, but we would like to sell some advertising rights in our venues, but we want to make sure that we are that we have a policy in place that honors First Amendment while still making sure that the advertising that goes up is appropriate for a school venue. So we don't want to jump into that until we're sure we're on the right track. But that's another thing we're talking about.
It's pretty easy. It's all Pepsi.
Not necessarily.
Dick's Sporting Goods.
Not necessarily.
The beer distributor.
Do we want to go around the table and see if there's any support for pay to play before, so we can decide whether for Bill to work on that in the budget?
Good idea.
Mr. All, you want to start?
Yeah, I'm in favor of pay for play.
I'm not in favor of pay to play. I think any athlete that decides to play a sport has the commitment before they step on the field or the court or anywhere else. So no, I would not support pay to play.
Mike?
I would not support it. I've talked to a student who attended here, I'm not sure what year, I talked to him last summer, so I forget the exact detail. But he actually was not planning to go to college, but because of football, had the opportunity to go to college, blew out his ankle and could not finish. But he wouldn't have had that opportunity without football as a tool to get there.
I myself am no, and not in favor of it also at this time.
I'm not sure about it. I'm going to see if, we're looking at schools in Westmoreland County. Let's see if Clonesville has a system, Pleasant, some poor districts.
Right now, I know Connellsville does not. Fraser, I don't think does. I think the only one I know of is Westmoreland, is Hempfield, and I think there's a few schools looking at it now. I don't know if Franklin Regional does, but I know Mount Pleasant isn't either right now.
They're not looking at it.
They're not. Well, I don't know if they're looking at it, but they're not. They're currently not pay to play.
Charlie, I just got an email from a colleague in another Westmoreland County school district, and she's doing a survey right now of all the other districts in the county to see who has a pay to participate program, and if they don't, are they considering one? So I don't know when that's going to be compiled, but when I get the information, I will share it with everyone.
I have a question for Mike. So $50 a year would have kept that kid from playing football and going to college, do you think?
From the idea I got talking with him, it probably could have.
$50. He would give up college to that.
Well, he wouldn't have given up college, but he wouldn't have opportunity.
Yeah, he'd have given up.
Possibly wouldn't have the opportunity to play football.
Let's keep going here. People were. You wanted.
Dr. Fein.
Go ahead. Were you finished? Are you finished?
Yes.
Okay. I'm with the. I think it's been a good discussion. At this point, I'm reluctant to. I would say I'm not ready to accept for all the reasons that we mentioned here.
Mr. Beistel?
I'm against it, just like one step at a time, get the price increase of tickets, go into this research a lot further and hurry up pushing it through. And I think right now, the way our school district is with our athletes and everything, I think it's not the appropriate time for this.
Thank you. Mrs. Love?
I don't agree with it. I think that any student that's going to participate in sports, they risk their health for our district, so I don't think they should have to pay.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else, Charlie, for us?
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
The last thing we have for you in terms of information, I handed you a table with elementary class sizes. And
we're not going over these cuts.
Well, we can do that. Well, let me do this, and then Bill can go over those with you if you'd like. I gave you some the projected enrollments. Kindergarten, we're conservatively estimating 135. We're thinking it might be a little higher than that, but we're not sure at this point in time. In first grade, we're looking at possibly 131 students. Second grade, 165. third grade 123, fourth grade 152, and fifth grade at 150. We are looking at keeping the same number of classroom teachers that we currently have, but moving one teacher from first grade to second grade to follow that bubble of population. That would give us average class sizes of 19.3 in kindergarten, 18.6 in first grade, 23.5 in second grade, 20.5 in third grade, 25.3 in fourth grade, and 25 in the fifth grade. Bill, did you want to talk a little bit about the cuts that you and I have gone through?
There's also some personnel on there. Does that need to be talked about?
We'll adjourn to executive session for that.
The memo that I sent out yesterday it reviews the changes that Dr. Molnar and I have talked about this past week in his office. Of course, the bond refinance, which will be pledged towards our debt service. We talked about increase in gate receipts. Mr. Miswa gave me his maintenance budget, and there's been a lot of discussion about the maintenance facility. Through the years, all our supplies have been scattered in buildings throughout the district, and there has been one central location as a receptacle for all our items. Now that we have the maintenance building, we can compile them all there and see what we have. And what we found is that we had a surplus of many different items, which enabled us to cut back a lot on our inventory. So we were able to identify $67,000 of expenditures this year that we won't have to make.
That's great.
Of course, a contract is settled, so we won't need to increase. We won't need to budget for a special counsel, but in looking at last year's expenditures for legal advice, I think it's necessary that we just roll that over into that line item. Mind you, every time we decide to contest an assessment, whenever a taxpayer appeals their assessment, every time we vote to contest that, that's time and money that we have to expend. Whenever a board member or an administrator calls Dr. or Mr. Patonic for legal advice, that's a billable hour. And so I think in order to be more realistic in how we utilize his services, it's necessary to increase our budget for that. We reduced expenditures in maintenance equipment, had to increase the expenditures for the VOTEC students. We have 86 students there this year. The VOTEC projected us at 92 students. However, our in-house, our guidance department thinks 88 would be a more accurate reflection. And some of these 1200 series are they're line items that Dr. Molnar was more familiar with than I was, and we compared what we spent last year to what we project for students this coming year, and we were able to identify some savings here and there. That's essentially, I think, what we can talk about here in public.
I have a number of questions about these cuts. The first one I'd like to talk about is the 2600-610 cut of $67,000. I went through the budget. That's a 40% cut of that category.
Right. That's correct.
You're telling me that last year we were over buying by 40%?
No, what we're telling you is over the last several years, because of the fact that we had no centralized location for equipment, or not equipment, but maintenance supplies, it was very difficult for the maintenance director to establish a current inventory, establish a par level, and determine what he needed. Mr. Miswah, when the maintenance building was completed, gathered materials from all the different buildings that were scattered here and there, emptied the storage trailers where things were buried that we couldn't get to, so we couldn't identify what they were, put them on shelves, categorized them, organized them, established par levels that he's going to need for the year, and determined that over the last several years, because of the fact that things were not accessible, perhaps, we have a large surplus of supplies.
Jeff,
so what I'm going to tell you is next year that number will increase. This is a one-shot deal, okay, and it has to do with
That's
the fact
pretty
that there's
serious
a surplus.
mismanagement. Considering we had the ace in the hole watching it, that surprises me. The next item, the psychological
But we should give Mr.
services.
Miswah congratulations for finding
Absolutely,
it.
Exactly.
absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Good job, good job. The psychological services, you're cutting by 28%, which means that 1 out of every 4 children who needs those services won't get them.
No, that's not correct.
Well, it's what the budget
well,
shows.
I know what you're saying.
I'm just showing the numbers off
right,
the budget.
so let me explain it to you. We get 71 days of psychological services from the IU
Right.
as part of our membership. We had been purchasing an additional 75 days, all right, for a total of 146 days of psychological service. We felt that with the decline that we've been having in enrollment, that we could back some of those numbers off. Those are the same psychological days that we've been using for years on end when our enrollment was much larger. So we feel that we can identify an efficiency there due to declining enrollment. If we get to a situation later in the year where we find that those days are necessary, we'll certainly find a way to get them back.
Were you using those days?
They were being used.
Well,
They were being used.
here we go. Okay, the next item, can you tell me, because if I look at the budget, if you look at the 11-12 budget, Bruce Campbell was $35,000, and then again it's $35,000, and then it's down to 10. Exactly how much did we pay him to negotiate the contract?
We can get those figures for you. I don't have them on the top of my head.
Was it $25,000? Because it would seem to me.
Do you have that, Bill?
Yes.
It should be around $25,000, right?
That's in more than one fiscal year, though.
Can't tell, though. I can't tell. Every year it says the same number, so I can't tell. I wouldn't know that.
Well, keep going. What is the point? Are you feeling we overpaid him? Or did we underpaid him?
I don't understand it, Levi. In one budget it says 35,000, then it says 35,000, then it goes down to 10. And all I'm asking, is that the difference between what we paid and what we're budgeting? I guess that's what I'm asking. And it probably is. I'm imagining it's...
Well, in last year's budget, there was $10,000 in there for labor negotiation.
35. And that big yellow one from Bill Porter? Oh, well. Okay, while he's looking that up then.
Like 49,000.
49,000.
Over a 2-year period, this year
11,
alone,
12.
which was significantly more than what was budgeted.
Right.
So when we reduce the expenditure, we're looking budget to budget, not actual expenditure. You understand?
No, I don't understand. That doesn't add up in my head. Okay, then we want to increase Mr. Botonic to $45,000 a year. Is that right? or not?
I took it that that $10,000 was just going to be there in case we needed it, but not an actual.
Well, just because it's budgeted doesn't mean we spend it.
Right. So he wouldn't be getting a $10,000 raise.
Oh, no, no,
It
no,
would just be
no, no,
there
no, no.
if we had,
No.
if it was there, we needed it.
What Mr. Patonic receives is a retainer, a monthly retainer. I think it's like $1,000 a month.
1,100.
Then it's per
And that's what he receives on a monthly basis. And then he bills us for additional items.
Okay, so for the 1,100, he comes to the meetings.
Right.
If someone calls him, that becomes a billable hour. Is that right,
Right.
David?
I don't always charge for every phone call.
I don't think you do either, but I've been led to believe you do, and I don't think you do either.
I can verify he doesn't.
I know that. But I've been accused of abusing this service, and Mike threw out some figures there about how many board members needed to agree to call him or something. Is this in a policy, Mike? Is there a policy about how we use our solicitor?
We're talking about budget now. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
we are. Yeah, we are. I don't think he charges for everything.
We,
He said he didn't.
We're budgeting next year for legal services about $35,000.
And that would make it 45 according to.
Well, it includes legal and audit services. We pay our auditor about $10,000 a year.
That doesn't go to Mr. Patonic.
He's not an auditor now.
No, but that does. I couldn't tell by looking.
Oh.
When you look at the line item,
Well, yeah,
I can't
the line item
tell.
says, he says legal and audit services, DP plus JS. JS is our auditor.
Yeah. Okay. And how much do we pay him?
About $10,000 a year
To do what?
to audit our books.
Shouldn't we look at that? Maybe there's a savings to be had there. Put that
well,
out for bid.
You know, frankly, $10,000 is really cheap compared to other districts.
The times they are a-changing. The next one I looked at, it says reduce OT, and I discovered that was overtime. And apparently, that represents 5% of the salaries that we pay maintenance and custodial people, and we're going to reduce that. You don't have the completed 707 policy returned, which I am convinced is going to restore the $30,000 a year costs. I think you better be very careful about looking at that item. The approved private school tuitions, which are $1,295.67, I'm not challenging it. I'm just wondering how you can do that. How can you? They're surely not going to get cheaper, Jack.
Well, you pay approved private school
Yeah.
based on how
A
many
contracted
students you have,
price.
no, how
Well,
many kids
okay,
you have.
yeah.
We had a couple of students who are no longer in our district who were going to approved privates, and we're not anticipating a great influx of students who would qualify for approved private school.
I
So
think
we felt we
that's-
were pretty safe to
I
do
think
that.
that's risky. I think
Well,
they can move in tomorrow.
That
we
could change.
we did leave some money in there as a cushion.
That could change, like you said, in a matter of how long it takes for a moving van to move into the district. But Dr. Molnar and I sat in his office, and he said, "Let's look at 1290." And I looked at that, and I went through this book here, and I determined how much we paid year to date, averaged that out over the year, and then we said, well, this figure here looks okay. How does that compare to the budget? And that's how we were able to identify how much we could reduce that expenditure by.
It's a chance you take.
And actually,
it is.
in
Keep
terms
going,
of
keep going.
approved privates, Dr. Fike, as you well know, we're looking at Children's Institute,
Oh, yeah.
School for the Deaf,
Yeah.
School for the Blind. Those are about the only three we use.
Yeah, the ones you have listed on my budget are Presley Ridge, Agape. And,
Those are not approved privates.
well, that's at 1241. Oh, I'm sorry, that's the next two. I'm sorry. That's to reduce an LS tuition. Is that learning support? Is that what LS stands for?
Yes.
We send students to Presley Ridge, Agape, and Ligonier Valley for learning support, Jack.
Well, the people we send to Ligonier Valley are adjudicated to a facility that is near Ligonier, and those students attend Ligonier Valley School District on a tuition basis.
So the LS is the kind of a subset of why we're doing it. The
Yeah.
learning support's a subset of why they're really
Precisely.
there.
Right. And in terms of Agape and Adelphi, One of the things we're trying to do here is build a very strong pyramid of interventions so that we have less students who are being outplaced because of behavioral issues.
Mhm.
We're trying to deal with those in-house, and the numbers bear that out.
Other than Ken, I've not heard anybody else on the school board suggest anything to cut. And
I'd also like to point out, like the 707 events, that's a different line item. That's,
oh, I know, but it's going to be maintenance costs, is what I'm saying. They're deeply woven into that. It went from 30,000 or something to 9,000, but it's going to go back. It's going to go back.
Yeah.
So
And
I'm just saying,
the overtime that we have listed here represented the time and a half overtime. So we took out the time and a half because, as you recall, when we negotiated the maintenance and housekeeping contract, that we were permitted to use part-time employees
And I
rather than
understand we're
full-time
not
at
doing
time
that,
and a half.
Jack.
We are doing that in most cases.
In most cases,
and there are a
okay,
couple of
'cause I-
situations
Yeah.
where, at the discretion of the manager, it's necessary to use a full-time employee for an hour or so because they are the most qualified to get a particular job done rather than pulling an employee.
Is it true that we now have to pay overtime because we have our meetings here?
About 45 minutes.
We never did before, but we do now.
Correct.
Thank you, Josie. Okay, I have about 18 things that I would like the board to consider for cuts. May I have the floor and go over them?
Could we do, sure, Chair, I don't want to defer to you, but we could be here until midnight, or I would like to get I guess I would like to have some sense that this is more than one person here, and that the meeting belongs to all of us.
Levi, when's somebody going to suggest?
When somebody going to say, we're waiting for them.
Okay.
We're waiting. Levi, you tell us. You can tell us a cut. Give me a cut, Levi.
Okay, let me put it in these terms. I've been listening here this evening, and if I listen to comments here, this district is in crises. Public education is going downhill, and the country, we're losing our financial base entirely. I happen to not look at it in that. I represent these people out here, and there's more than just the people out here. In my own Upper Tyrone County, there are 2,000. Okay, so multiply that, 5,000 here. Just keep on multiplying that. I ran because I thought we had a very viable school district here, a very strong school district, well managed, well handled in the finances. And I look at this and I say, they come here and they're proposing. I'm not the operational, I'm the policy person here. And you ran on that basis of trying to help to represent the citizens of good policy. I'm not asking for specific cuts. I'm asking, however, that you do. And what did our administration came up with? 336,000, as near as I can tell, in the past month, in cuts. Will there be more? Well, perhaps. Now, big picture here, folks. We have a fund balance of $8 million. That's a well-run school district. If we look at the fund balance of what is committed, 47 million. We're looking at a fund balance of 3,300,000, round figures here. That is a very viable school district. And the citizens of this community should know that in relation to other school districts, public school districts here, we're very well managed on the financial front. We're also very well managed on the academic front. That's what we just heard, and that comes from third parties here, and where we stand in the state, and where we stand in. All I'm saying is a little bit of common sense here. At least I'm trying to represent myself here. I did not run for this office 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and saying to the citizens, there's a crisis, and I'm coming in here, and I'm going to try to change everything. I'm going to cut. I did not come in on that basis. So I'm not going to enter into that kind of a fray this evening or in future meetings. That's all I have to say. I have high commendation for what the administration has been trying to do here in regards to budget and in regards to also the curriculum and that we had here. Now, I realize people can look at it in different, look at it in a different frame of reference and look at it in a different way. And I do, at least for, speaking for myself, I want to respect that. Although I heartily disagree with that, and I would heartily say to the citizens of this community that I totally disagree with that. And in my view, it is a healthy school district. And I'm totally committed to making it stronger.
Good job, Levi.
Levi, what suggestions do you have for this $752,000 deficit? Do you have some suggestions for that?
Dr. Fike, Mr. Salem said he'd like to, if you'd be willing, he'd be willing to look at their cuts and see for something more that they can look at, since him and Dr. Molnar handle all that. Look at your suggestions and see.
I think the board should hear it. Kennel and I met with Mr. Salem, and we did talk about some things. I think it's only fair to the board to hear about some suggestions, because we have a current deficit of $752,908.
Well, I mean, it's not that I don't want, but like Levi said, our job here is to take the final budget and vote on it, and their job is to give us the budget. Okay. You can have your recommendations, and you gave it to him, and if there's something under that, like, oh, wow, they may be missed, then they can bring it to us.
So you're telling me I cannot tell the board my recommendations to make cuts in the budget. Is that what you're saying?
You want to read down the list?
Yes, I do.
You're just going to read the list and not discuss it?
Got it right here.
I mean, do you want to go around and...
I welcome other ones. I would like to hear all the other cuts from the other...
But like Levi said, I mean, we can give it, go ahead. I mean, you're just going to read down the list. We're not going to discuss it. It's just going to be ideas.
I thought it was to be discussed, Josie. You're telling me we're not allowed to discuss this?
Why were you coming to this meeting?
I didn't. I'm just asking you.
If we're not going to discuss
you said you're going to read down the ideas.
And who said that they make the policies?
No, I didn't say would they make the... I said they come to us with the decision.
We can take care of things, Josie. The board, not just Mr. Salem, Mr. Molnar. I think you're wrong. I think we do have to have input.
You might have input, but you have to listen to these people to bring stuff back to us.
You're the people that put us in this mess.
They did, Butch. This was it.
In this mess? You're the one who did it.
All right.
What can't you get through?
Come on, guys.
I'm hard-headed.
I guess so.
We have a $752,098 budget deficit. That's what I'm trying to address.
They don't want us to know that.
Go for it.
The first question
No, don't put, just propose what you plan to, what you would like to see. Go ahead.
First question I had was the budgetary reserve is $400,000. Can that be reduced to $250,000?
Just keep going.
Yes or no? Okay, I have a question about technology. There's $210,000 in the budget for technology. And we have a technology coordinator aid for $50,000. Have we looked at these services being provided and outsourced, and somehow it looks to me like $300,000 for technology services seems very high. I would ask that the administration look at that.
Is that a personnel item?
If you're going to discuss general budgetary things rather than specific people, you can do that in the public. If you're going to discuss specific individuals or criticize specific individuals or deal with specific contracts, then that would be a personnel issue. Are you going to talk about the general concept of
Just
technology?
the general concept of technology services.
She already mentioned the person once.
When there's two people in the technology department, how can you separate
That's
one
one
from
of the
the other?
dilemmas of having a public budget process. I recognize that.
Well, one of the questions I have is if the Scottsdale Bank donates hundreds of thousands of dollars to pay for technology, and that's what made me wonder if we could evaluate our expenses for technology as part of the budget. I strongly feel that there should be an immediate closing of the administration building. And what I did is I went through the budget and I took everything that was marked for the administration building. That's a very tedious process, very difficult. But I looked up, the things that I found were building security, the insurances, the technical services, disposal, electricity, water, sewage repair, liability insurance, telephone, internet, gas, equipment replacement, and so forth. And you save no salaries by closing the administration building because those people take their salaries with them. So you don't save salary money. But as far as I can come up with, it is between $65,000 and $75,000 a year. And the other thing you have to look at is you're not going to fix that building. The other option that we have with that building is to turn it into an asset. If you can sell it or tear it down and sell the lot and get money, that becomes an asset. But somewhere between anywhere from $75,000 to $100,000. But I think it needs to be done now. And I understand there's a lot of stuff in it, and it takes. I watched what happened at the primary center in 7 weeks last time when Sam got those floors done. And I don't think it's impossible to move out of that building. And I think we have more than adequate place in other areas of the school district. We have Charlie Swink is located in the administration building. Charlie, isn't the bulk of your work at the high school? Okay.
About half.
Yeah. So, you could function at the high school. I think Lynn Huggins could function where her biggest source of services are needed.
Okay, go ahead.
Business manager can do it. There's a business department, there's an administration department. And Dr. Scott has talked about this, and he said with the technology we have available, you can communicate better in some ways than you did before. I don't know if there's any way we can look at tax collection cuts, but from what I can tell, it cost us $155,933 to collect our taxes. And some of them include a lot of supplies and bonding and things that I would think those people should pay for themselves. I'm not knowledgeable about this. Maybe this is something that can't be changed. We seem to have so many things that can't be changed. I looked at the class sizes, and the class sizes were given to us. I have the exact documents given to us for the high school, the middle school, and the elementary school, given to me by the administration. And I think we can easily eliminate 6 teachers and save around $500,000. In kindergarten, class size would go from 1 to 21 to 1 to 24. That would be 3 students. Grade 1, 1 to 17 to 1 to 20. Grade 2, 1 to 18 to 1 to 21. Grade 3, 124 to 128, I'd be adding 4. And in grades 4 and 5, from 123 to 127. But the average, according to what I could figure out, based on the information given to me by the administration, the average with 6 less teachers would be 1 to 24. That would be our class size. We looked at supplemental contracts. I believe Mr. Salem redid them, but there are 121 of them. I understand we cannot do anything about the fact that they exist, but am I correct that we have the option as to whether or not we fill them? Is that true or not?
Yes.
I think we need to take a long, hard look. As I said, I was surprised when I voted for 1 coach and realized I had just voted to hire 6. I didn't understand that. And then the last question I have is, we had the budget meeting where we had all the people at the tables, and I had asked, when are we going to address those issues so that we can respond to the public as they participated in that meeting? Thank you.
There's a question I want to ask. There's the school up in Albert, and they're talking about air conditioning. Now, we're talking what, $700,000-$800,000 to air condition that building? Well, the whole 9 yards, I think it's $900,000. I was in that vicinity. I don't know. But anyway, is there any place that we could close that building and move them children to another facility, middle school, or
Not-
something, because we're gonna spend 900 or whatever, the air conditioning, maybe a few years we'll have to go and eliminate it, and we've already spent that money.
Not at the present time. I actually asked Mr. Mash and Mr. Lee to do some room counting, and there is not space, according to my principals, at the present time. That's certainly something that we would look at down the road.
Because that's a lot of money to spend in a couple of years, we'll end up eliminating.
May I speak to that, Butch? I did a lot of research on closing the Alberton Elementary School. And again, I'm the one who said we need that long-range plan. The smartest thing to have done was to have closed that building and put just 2 or 3 more rooms, put some more rooms down here. But the closest I can come, and I list everything, is every year that building is closed, we will save $1,360,910. And that does not include the fact that you close a cafeteria, you have no more bus stops up there, you don't do snow removal, you don't do any of those things, no need to air condition it, no need to repair it in any way, shape, or form. About $1.5 million a year. And if we took that $1.5 million a year and we added on to this building down here for even twice that amount, you would be saving millions and millions and millions of dollars over the years in the long haul.
How many rooms are we short in the search? Because
Mr. Lee, how many rooms did you tell me you had available?
2.
Mr. Lee has 2 rooms available.
Even if we increase class size, we can only find 2 rooms there.
There's two current rooms that are not being used.
Well, what do we do when we get 463 more students?
Well, Roughdale. And we had another building open. We had another building open at that point in time. It's been closed, what, 4 or 5 years?
The size of the rooms at Alberton could easily accommodate 40 kids. Those rooms are huge at Alberton. And I think the rooms here are huge too. But like I said, I think it was an issue of not planning, not looking at those decreasing enrollments, costs, less funding from the state. I mean, it's costing us, not even counting the teachers, it's costing us $1.5 million to $1 million a year to run the primary center.
Right now it'd be 14.
14. I think we need to take a look at physical structure.
I think we should look at floor plans.
What?
More rooms made in that building to accommodate more classrooms.
What if in some ways we have we're looking here at the in the next month, 6 weeks. What if we would have during the summer and fall, especially before we move ahead with with air conditioning, making it 800,000, a plan on whether we could realize some savings, whether it's in administration building or the Alberton building, and then look at that in the next 6 months.
Well, the Alberton air conditioning money, was that money not taken to put on the bond refinance? You took that money to put over on there?
No, there's been no money expended towards air conditioning Alberton.
Right, but I thought the money that we were saving from the bond was going towards capital improvement.
Right. Well, that was one option.
But you didn't do that, we put it on the debt service, so that money should be gone and not available for Alberton.
That's correct. But
Josie, the air conditioning was $750,000. That was
there money from
$130,000.
the original fund balance set aside, and this refinance money we're putting on debt service. Right.
Why is this administration thing such a major worry? I think there's mold down in that building. I don't think it's healthy for you guys to work there.
Well, you indicated that you thought a long-term plan was a good idea, and we agree with you. And
for Alberton.
Well, for the whole district.
No, I would say this is a short-term issue.
For the
the
whole
administration
district.
is a short-term issue.
So we don't want to make any rash decisions without looking at the long-term effects. So what we'd like to do is study for a year, see where the best place to put those offices and so forth are. We're not opposed to closing that building. We just want to do it right. Okay?
But Jack, when you scatter people out, you don't have to worry about it anymore. I mean, for example, Charlie Swink goes to the high school. He's not going to leave the high school 5 years down the road.
And
Some of this stuff is just to move later. some of it's a no-brainer. I mean, there are rooms, you know, I do what you want. I can't even imagine that being a big deal. I'm surprised. Whatever. I'd like to hear some suggestions from the other members of the board. I really would.
Do we need another budget meeting? Or do we come back?
No.
We have one on the May
We're
24th.
going to vote in 2 weeks. We're going to vote on the proposed final budget in 2 weeks. Then we have 30 days public display of that.
During those 30 days, the budget can be decreased, but it cannot be increased.
Right.
So at the present time, Fayette County has the increase and Westmoreland County does not.
Right.
And do you expect that to stay the same? Shall we come back May 24th? Like, does this affect what you gave us here? Does we get more money from any of this stuff?
I didn't give you.
The Senate has passed the spending plan for the state. It hasn't gone to the House yet. So I'm sure there will be some debate and some amending going on once it reaches the House of Representatives.
Do we know, like, that won't be before May 24th?
They don't reconvene until May 21st, I believe.
Remember, it hasn't been that long ago when having the budget from the state by June 30th was a luxury. Several years ago, the state didn't pass a budget until October, November, and school districts were actually applying for loans to cover their expenses until the state passed their budget. You know, on the bright side, at least the governor provides us a budget on time, so we know what we're dealing with. Of course, it's not due until June 30th, so until that time, you know, it's kind of a guessing game. I guess the devil that you know is better than the devil you don't know. I mean, we're still required to pass a budget by June 30th, and if you don't know what your state funding is, it makes that kind of a guessing game. But it's the system in which we have to work, and so...
Well, Bill, I have one last question. In other words, if you don't come back with any more cuts, we will take the deficit of $752,908 out of our fund balance. Is that correct?
That's correct. However, I'm working every day to try and identify more cuts.
Do we need to go into executive session to talk about some of the stuff that's on this list that Bill gave us? We need to do that tonight?
We would adjourn to executive session.
Make a motion to go into executive session? So moved?
This is to adjourn.
Aye.
To adjourn. Adjourn the meeting.
To executive session.
Was there a motion?
Motion and a second.
I thought you had
I think Ken and Butch.
You had a motion right here.
Okay,
Or
Butch and
Butch and
Gale.
Gale.
All right, so moved.
Vote.
Okay, Mr. All those in favor? Aye. All opposed? Thank you very much.
We can step back into the